Blood is classified as a type of connective tissue because it consists of a non-living component, that's the plasma, and then a living or cellular component that we refer to as the formed elements. And the formed elements will be suspended within the plasma. So we have basically three types of formed elements. We have the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and then the platelets. So this is actually a model of a red blood cell or an erythrocyte. And this would represent a mature red blood cell. Mature red blood cells are biconcave discs, so they have sort of like this little dimple in the middle, and they are basically sacs of hemoglobin. So we don't see a nucleus, they are anucleate, and they do not have any of the other organelles that we would associate with cells. They're basically that sac of hemoglobin that functions to transport oxygen. And so the blood cells, the red blood cells, will have a sort of orangish or pinkish or reddish color associated with them. There are about 4 to 6 million red blood cells per microliter of blood, so they are the most numerous of the formed elements. Then we have the white blood cells. So the white blood cells, or the leukocytes, are going to have different functions associated with them, and they are much larger than the red blood cell. I didn't mention the size of a mature red blood cell. It's only about 7 to 8 micrometers, and which is big enough for them to just pass single file through capillaries where we would have gas exchange take place. But the white blood cells are much larger, and they have a nucleus, and they are grouped into granulocytes and agranulocytes. The granulocytes include the neutrophils, the eosinophils, and the basophils. This particular model is a neutrophil. It is referred to as a neutrophil, and it's also referred to as a granulocyte because we see these granules in the cytoplasm. And the reason why it's referred to as a neutrophil is because these granules do not pick up or they do, but not very darkly staining. The granules will appear to be a very pale blue or pale pinkish color, and so they don't pick up the acidic or the basic stain, so they were referred to as neutrophils. Another name for neutrophils are polymorphonuclear leukocytes, because the nucleus is multi-lobed, and you can actually see where it sort of will change shape if you look at it under a histological section under the microscope. They are the most numerous of the white blood cells. They make up anywhere between 50 to 70% of the white blood cell population per microliter of blood. And their main job is to phagocytize pathogens or debris. They're sort of like the first white blood cell on site because they're the most numerous to help take care of pathogens should they enter into the body. I'm going to continue with the granulocytes. This is an eosinophil. Eosinophils are, their name is based on the fact that these granules in the cytoplasm, they will pick up the stain eosin, and so they have these pink staining granules. These cells are not very common in a normal blood smear. They actually make up probably between 2 to 4% of the white blood cell population, and they're structurally, so they have the pink staining granules in the cytoplasm. They have a bilobed nucleus that is connected by a very thin strip here. And the job of the eosinophil, it's also a phagocyte. We would expect to see more eosinophils if someone was infected with a parasitic infection. And so they, like a parasitic worm or something like that. But like I said, the eosinophils are somewhat phagocytic, and they also play a role in allergic reactions. Basophils are also granulocytes. They have these dark purple staining granules. They pick up a basic stain, and if we saw these under a microscope, they would actually, those granules would somewhat obscure the nucleus. We wouldn't really see the nucleus very well, but the nucleus is also bilobed, but those lobes are not connected by a thin strip like we see with the eosinophils. And like I said, if we saw this under a microscope slide, a lot of times you wouldn't even really be able to see the nucleus because it would be obscured by these dark staining purple granules. They are the least numerous of the white blood cells. They make up less than 1% of the white blood cell population per microliter of blood. And their granules contain an anticoagulant, like heparin. They contain histamine. The eosinophils, they contain antihistamine, so they're mediators of like allergic responses, whereas the basophils, they promote allergic responses because their granules do contain histamine, which is an part of the inflammatory process. Both eosinophils and basophils, they are similar in size. They're about 10 to 14 micrometers in width. And like I said, the basophils are the least numerous of the white blood cells. Now we have the agranulocytes. The agranulocytes, we have the lymphocytes and the monocytes. The lymphocytes are the second most numerous of the white blood cells. They make up anywhere between 20 and 40% of the white blood cell population in a microliter of blood. And they have a very large spherical nucleus and a very thin sort of cytoplasm that goes around the nucleus. They do have granules, but they don't pick up a stain, so you would not, that's why they're referred to as agranulocytes. Lymphocytes also tend to be very small compared to the other white blood cells. They can range anywhere between 5 and 17 micrometers, so they can be smaller than a red blood cell, but they can also be larger than the eosinophils and the basophils. Lymphocytes, and you may have heard the terms B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. So lymphocytes are going to be involved in adaptive immunity, so they will mount a specific immune response to various pathogens. Then we have the monocytes. So monocytes are also agranulocytes. They have a large bilobed nucleus, almost looks like a kidney bean or a U shape, very large U-shaped nucleus. They have light staining granules, so they don't really pick up the stain, so that's why they're referred to as the agranulocyte or an agranulocyte. The monocytes are the third most numerous white blood cell as far as the white blood cell population. They make up anywhere between 3 and 8% of the white blood cell population in a blood smear. They're the largest of the white blood cells. They range in size between 14 and 24 micrometers in diameter, and they are the precursors to macrophages. So they give rise to macrophages. Macrophages are highly phagocytic. They are like the big guns when it comes to trying to phagocytize pathogens, and so they are going to monitor if there is an immune response or an inflammatory response or anything like that, is you're fighting some type of infection. The neutrophils, they're the most numerous. They'll sort of hold the line until the monocytes can get to where the danger is, and once the monocyte leaves circulation and goes out into the tissue space, it is then referred to as a macrophage, but it is highly phagocytic. So those are the white blood cells. There is another formed element called a platelet. I do not have a model of a platelet, but platelets are fragments of cells, and I discussed those in a different video.